going into this, because I think it's super important, you build these, use these, not everybody uses these, but I think all of us in our group use these, or should, right? You always have time, so there's never a need to rush and not at least look at this data. So you use these, they're a little tool over here, the long position, short position tool. So this is what a short position looks like. It has the stop loss at the top, obviously. And then if you're longing, you have your stop loss at the bottom, which is why it's red. And then you're in the money is all this green, right? If you're in a long, and then
are those numbers determinate no matter what leverage you use? 3%, 5%?
yeah, so the cool thing is this is just doing the organic math, right? This is saying with no leverage, I'm just telling you that at 76,000 from this entry, that's 10.8%, 10.87% exactly ROI. It's just measuring all of it. And then it's also saying based on the red zone, the stop loss zone that you drew, I'm telling the user, right? I measured it, TradingView, the robot or whatever, the tool itself is like, I measured it, and that's exactly 1.41%, right? So that's basically now, and you're doing it based around these lines, right? These lines are like the algos. So somebody might say, I don't want to go up there. I want something more conservative because it's been ranging for a while. So I actually want to, kind of place it right here and ask myself, is this worth it? And so this gets to a number that's not worth it because it's less than 5. It's 4.23. It's risking 1.4 to make right at about 6. And so what we have to do to make it worth it is shrink what we're willing to lose. And we can tighten it. And we do it all around those lines. Like that's how much, we use those lines. And so now you can work with this, and you could even say that's actually a little too tight. I probably, now I'm looking for too much precision. So how about I just look for it to go about right there. If I can get into my long just above that pressure line, I'd be doing really well. And just in case the price action goes a little below those lines, I'll leave a little bit of room. But that's a great trade. And honestly, like between you and I, like if Bitcoin just fell tomorrow, this would be a great trade, right? Because of all the math, because of the logic of I'm using pressure lines as far as like why my entry would be there. Most people have no logic behind their entry. So if I'm gonna long, I would probably do it there. If it went further, I would do it here on this line. If it went further, I might consider this line. If it went further, I would consider this line, and so forth and so on. And those lines change every 2 weeks because these are the 2-week lines. But the fact that they're 2-week lines also makes them pretty powerful. And they happen to be, I think just respected by traders, across the world, really. So that's why we see those hold up. I do look at these as zones. So sometimes they're respected like super, super precise. And then other times, you'll see a wick go down here, but then go back up. And then when you look at the final body of the candle, it looks kind of like this, right? It's the candle was there, but maybe the wick fell down somewhere further. Occasionally that happens. That would be an extreme wick because we're looking at a pretty good size, time frame here, the 1 day. But the goal would be for the price to fall and then enter somewhere in there and then to fly back up. And then this would be the next logic-based place to take profits. And you could take all of your profits. You could take partial profit. I mean, you could take 50% of your money there, especially if you think it's going to keep going, which it could. And so that's kind of cool. And you can use all of this data on much smaller time frames to decide what you want to do when price gets into your, zone of where you're thinking about taking profits. If you start seeing some of it turn red on smaller confluence monitors, you may say, hey, I'm going to take a little more profit because it looks like it's about to get rejected and fall back down. And I want to feel like I did the right thing here. If it looks like everything's still super, green as it's approaching this line, then you may take less. You may say, man, I'm just going to take 20% because these are like greed prevention lines, but I think it's going to keep going up. And so this may be the start of the real bull run. And so I'm going to leave, 75% of my position in there, and then I'm going to move my stop loss up. So if I do happen to, be wrong, at least I'm protected. So you have a lot of different options, maybe too many options, but that's kind of, how you can use this. As far as the things that you're kind of talking about, I think if you took anything from this, as far as like use this asymmetry calculator, it would be find logical reasons to use this in the places that you're going to use it, right? Like you could even short, I wouldn't short against orange, but if the pressure was dying out and that candle was not orange anymore and it looked like, things were flipping, you could literally use that same logic with the volatility cloud. And those have actually done really, really well in the past. So it doesn't have to be a pressure line. You could literally look for a really nice asymmetrical short at a volatility cloud like that. And you don't have to do 30x leverage like some of the guys. You could just say, what if that is where it ends? Because the candle's not orange anymore. All the orange is kind of going away. And usually that's what it looks like when it's weakening. So what if I had an overall like, reasonable position like this, and I wanted to do just a low leverage trade? Could I do it, and would it make sense? And so that's where you would look at this kind of short and you would say, okay, 6, that's actually for low leverage, that's respectable. Paul Tudor Jones says 5-1. This is a 6, that's even better. And so if that number is good, then that gives you permission to consider the math, right? So you would say, okay, I'm maybe going to do a 3x on a 6 risk reward ratio. And so if I'm going to do a 3x leverage, which is reasonably low, and it's Bitcoin, it's not like it's Bonk or Pepe or anything like that. I'm just gonna say that if I lose, am I comfortable losing about, what is that, 0.6% times 3? So am I comfortable, let's say with slippage and everything, am I comfortable losing 2%? Got it. Okay, so 2%. That's fine. And then if this is going to be magnified by 3 and it's about 3.5, then that's about 10.5. Got it. Okay. So this looks reasonable. That is my 6-to-1 risk reward ratio, which is good. Now the question I have to ask myself is 2% of what am I comfortable losing? And what makes it worth?
Yes.
And what makes it worth it, right? Like what makes it worth it to me? So it's a balance of what am I comfortable losing and also what's worth the risk, right? So I would quickly do the math here and I would say, okay, am I comfortable losing, this much on a 3x? My $1,000 would go to 980. And then if I'm successful here, my $1,000 would go to 1,000. What would that be? 1,000, roughly 100, give or take, right? So is it worth it to me to like play this game to make $100? And is it worth it, to play this game to lose whatever, $20?
This is
And
where
so
I need the most like focus on myself and discipline to do that, because I know where I want to go. And I can be really disciplined on not letting it go. Like I was sharing with you, like where I want to be between, at least for right now, $300 to $500. So what in my mind, I'm trying to figure out like, okay, how do I leverage enough money in there? Like I'll show you a couple trades that I feel like when I see them and then I do good, I'll show you the percentages which they go up, but I'm not putting enough in. And then I'm looking at it, it's like, ugh, like if I did more, that would be there. But I also don't know how to look at it like, okay, well, if it was going the other direction, how quickly would that be out of that account?
Yeah. Well, these asymmetry calculators are, that's what they're really built for. If I'm what I'm picturing, right? If you did this math and you go, man, before I do this doesn't really look that attractive to me. Again, we're just looking at this one, right? You'd say like, I don't want to do this if all I'm going to win is $100 and I'm going to risk 20. I need to like magnify that 5x, right? Because I want to win more like 500, not 100. I want to win 500, and maybe I'm willing to risk not 20, but I'm willing to risk 100, right? I'm willing to risk 100 to make, really actually at a 6-to-1 ratio, it'd be more like 600, right? So maybe I want to play a game where I'm willing to risk 100 to make 600 if I think I have a good shot at doing that. And then so you have like two ways of doing that here. One is to increase your leverage, right? You would have to increase it from, especially at $1,000, right? You would have to increase 3x leverage. If this is the number with 3x leverage, if it's 20, then you would have to magnify it by 5. So to do that, your options would be, and this is what the pitfall that most people fall into, your options to get that to where you want it, right? Where I'm willing to risk $100 to make my $600. The answer, just based on the math, is 15x. And so the problem with 15x is people don't realize technically what the statistics are and how challenging it makes it. So because money moves against you 15 times faster than normal, and it moves against you 3 times actually 5 times faster than the 3x that we were just talking about. So money velocity is increased quite a bit. So obviously the other difference is it's increased on this upside, by quite a bit too. But that's one option. And I think what happens is people always choose this option because it feels the safest, because it's the same $1,000. So they're like, yeah, I like it because I don't have to put any more money in. I'm going to risk the same $1,000. Only this time I can possibly play a game where I lose 100 or I make 600. Again, with 15x leverage, chances are they're going to lose the 100 much more often. So the other option that a person has is to keep the 3x leverage and keep the relatively safer game where the statistics are not moving against you as much. And you're you're almost like, I don't know, you're so far away from liquidation where you would lose your whole position that it's usually pretty negligible, especially if you have a stop loss at 5%. And so the other option that you have is not to increase your leverage by 5x, but to increase your capital position by 5x. And so in that game, you're basically saying, I'm still going to play a safer game with the 3x leverage, but in order for me to get the money velocity I want and to play the game I want to play, I need to have 5,000 in there, because with 5,000 at a 3x leverage, the exchange is going to now treat it not like a crazy position, but it's going to treat it like a $15,000 position. It's going to give me like 3 times the working capital. And so now I can have a bit of a safer game. I would still have my negative 5%, on average, or in this case, we actually worked it out, right? It would be negative 2%. So it's actually a bit less. We'll cross this out. My risk now is negative 2% based on that asymmetry that I figured out. And my risk reward ratio stays the same. No matter how much money I'm playing with, that stays the same. That's kind of stagnant and will never change. This is literally the measurement of the move, that I'm looking for. And then my potential gain is still here, right? This I think we had 3.5. So let's say 3.5 is still what I'm looking for, times 3x. The percentage is still going to be about this 10.5. The difference is it's going to be 10.5 of a larger number. And so now your gain stands to be much closer to that $600 with, with that similar move. So if it just moves 3.5%, I believe was the math, then, you stand to make that money quite a bit faster.
And
So
I'd
does that make
rather
sense?
do that. Yes. And that's what I'm looking to rather have larger positions
Yeah,
safeguarded and that because I feel like I get
yeah,
beat up all the time with the leverage where I see it going like 50, 60, 70, 80%. I put in like $1,000 or 2,000 and showing 100 or 200, but it's only gaining like $40, $50. I was like, oh, if I put in 10,000 or $20,000, I would have hit my mark in like literally
yeah.
minutes versus
So
watching for
the
hours.
yeah, yeah, and in this scenario, sometimes you can just walk away and just let the thing play out. But in this scenario, we would look at it, in a couple different ways. And the reason that is what it is because you're making this 3.41%, so 3.5%. But off of 5,000, because of the 3x leverage, you're technically making, closer to this 10.5. And so if you take 5,000 and you multiply it by 10, I'm sorry, 1.105, then you get 55.25. And so it's not the exact math, but that position climbs a bit faster. And the only reason that it's not, even more fast is because you're at 3x leverage. So the cool thing about it is, I think when the position is moving a little bit more slowly, it's less stressful also. So, you'll notice that you have a bit more time to react. You have a bit more time to move your stop loss. Again, liquidation is a threat at higher leverage. When you're at like 2x, 3x, it's much, much less of a threat. Like if I entered a Bitcoin short here at, let's just say 71, because I think this is where I should short, the actual liquidation level would probably be like 80,000. So it's like we'll take all of your money if Bitcoin climbs up to 80,000 and you haven't gotten out of your position yet. And so wherever it is, I'm making that up, but wherever it is, it's a good distance away. That's like nowhere close to where if you put 1,000 in with 15x leverage and you enter right here, liquidation might be like right here. It's not that far away. It could happen within the day, a lot of times. Maybe not on Bitcoin, but definitely on a lot of the smaller cap tokens.